Hey guys, hey everyone. I was trying to yell at my husband and tell him to hurry up and shut the door before I went live because the door is super squeaky. Or it's just kind of noisy. So like right as I'm going live, it's like shut the door. Anyways, everybody, happy hump day again. Hope you guys are having a good day. We're gonna talk more about Casey Anthony. Casey Anthony documentary that now it's brought back all this stuff that happened back in 2008, 2011, from the time her daughter first went missing until the trial, her being acquitted of the charges of killing her daughter. She does this documentary, and everything that we thought we knew in the trial, she goes against it basically. Even down to the reason that her defense attorney Jose Baez told us that Kaylee died. So in this documentary, a lot of accusations thrown towards her dad. Now, when this actually took place back in 2011, the trial, I think when the trial came up, that was the first time we heard that there was any accusations against her father. I think that's when they first made any accusations against her father, George Anthony. Before then, he was basically portrayed as the doting grandfather, good dad. There was videos that came out of him going to the jail to visit Casey several times. She always seemed super happy to talk to him, at times asking to speak specifically to her dad. So I don't think anybody had any suspicion that anything was going on there, that he was abusing her or that he could be responsible for little Kaylee's disappearance. Well, when the trial started, he was immediately thrown under the bus that, George is behind it. George sexually abused Casey. George was the one that found Kaylee in the pool, and he, did away with her body. So all those accusations was thrown at him back then. Now, in a new documentary, Casey is even going further into detail with those accusations of sexual abuse. And one thing that we've all been wondering is, can he sue her? Can George Anthony sue Casey for what she's saying in this documentary? So, of course, when you want to know, if somebody can sue someone, if they have a good case, there's nobody better to ask than an attorney, right? And you would want to ask an attorney that, as Vinnie Paulson says, a heavy hitter, one that could take on a case like this and win it. So he spoke to Ben Chew. Ben Chew is the lead attorney, was the lead attorney in the Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard trial. We all watched it on TV. We all watched it on the internet. We all watched it as it was happening, going down. I was giving updates, every time something happened about what was happening. That was such an interesting trial. As always, everything that I say in this video is my opinion. I do realize that Casey Anthony was tried in the court of law and she was found not guilty for murdering her daughter. When I say, babe, it's the light on the camera. When I say that I think she's guilty, that I think she murdered her daughter, that is my opinion. I am not stating that as facts. I just turned it off. Let me know what you think. I'm not stating that as facts, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to watch what Ben Chew has to say in reference to George Anthony suing his daughter Casey Anthony for the accusations that she has been making against him in the recent documentary. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to get into it. You guys let me know if you guys can hear this. My opinion, I don't think the dad is innocent either. It would be interesting if he did sue her. And the thing is he's in a bad way right now. George Anthony got into a really bad car accident. He's not in the best of health. And I think he had gotten to a place where he just wanted to reconcile everything. Like on one of the last interviews that he did, or the last interview that he did, he was saying if I could go back, or if I could talk to her, I would apologize. I would apologize to her. I would apologize to everybody, my family, my friends, everyone, for how things happened. No, George Anthony was never a person of interest or a suspect. He was never a suspect. They never had a reason to suspect him. I mean, Cindy Anthony put the phone call in. My granddaughter's been missing for 31 days. We found my daughter's car today. It smelled like a dead body has been in the car. They get on the phone with Casey. What happened? My daughter's been missing for 31 days. Well, do you know where she's went? Do you know where she is? Yeah, the nanny took her. Who's the nanny? Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. Immediately lies, lies, lies. So there was no reason for them to even consider George because they had the mother right there who didn't report. They had the mother right there that partied for 31 days. Why didn't they ever interview more people? I think they interviewed a good bit. I mean, I think they interviewed tons of people as far as Casey's friends, all kind of people. George is being used as an excuse for Casey's murder of her child, in my opinion. Yeah, there was nothing that would have, and that's what they say. The investigators say. They said we had no reason. He worked with us. He was more than willing to talk to us. And it does seem like when George was around Cindy, he was a little bit more, he didn't want to blame Casey when he was with Cindy. He didn't want to blame Casey because he knew Cindy was not going to be happy with that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about for the actual case. I think they interviewed a lot of people. I mean, they had a lot of witnesses throughout the trial. So, I mean, I think they interviewed a good bit of people. Let me see if we can find out how many people was interviewed for this. I don't know if we'll be able to find it. I would have to look over it, but they had a lot of witnesses. And if memory serves me correct, I mean, friends, family, a lot of people. So I think because he knew that Cindy was kind of in denial and Cindy did not want to blame Casey. So when he was around Cindy, he was a little bit more tight lipped, like, oh, I believe my daughter's innocent. I don't believe my daughter would do anything. And then when he could get the investigators alone or the police officers alone, he would say, listen, she's lied her whole life. She's lied about everything. Like, I worry. I think she's hiding something. I don't know what to think. But around Cindy, I don't think he felt like he could do that because he knew it would cause him a problem. I think I'd rather spend a life in prison than deal with something like that. Yeah. B. Hey, B. So we're going to listen to what he has to say. Yeah, we'll have to say the comment that he made at the funeral was very weird. I do have to say that. Now, the smelling of the hair, I can understand that because, like I said, my husband smells our hair. Like every time I hug Sean when we lay in bed, he sniffs my hair. He sniffs our kids' hair. Like we hug him, he's like, I don't know. It's just one of those things. His dad did it to him. Now, I think I wonder if George being on that stage, at his granddaughter's funeral, there's thousands of people there. It's being broadcasted, everywhere. Maybe his nerves got to him, and he just kind of said, I don't know. That was kind of weird, but saying something weird versus straight up lying about the fact that you didn't have your daughter for 31 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he probably lied about some things, but nothing related to Kaylee. Lied about something more along the lines of I think he may have had an affair, and he may have lied about that. But I don't know. I just, I really don't think he had anything to do with Kaylee. My personal opinion. I don't know. Yeah, he should have never said that speech. It sounded super creepy. Exactly. He must not let anyone proofread it. I agree. It was really weird. Yeah, I definitely agree to that. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to listen to what Ben Chew has to say about it. And Sean, you're going to hear it. We're going to play throughout Ben Chew's interview. They are actually going to play what George Anthony said at Kaylee's funeral. So he just said things like, I'll never get to smell her hair again, like the smell of her sweet sweat when she comes in from playing from outside. I say hugs are great, but hugs from children, they give you an energy like nothing before, or something like that. Like it, yeah, it was kind of, it just, was he on some sort of medication that kind of made him a little wonky? I don't know, you know. It's definitely weird. All right, we're going to go ahead and listen to this interview with Ben Chew and what he has to say in regards to if he was going to, if George Anthony was to come to him and say, would you take on my case, the factors that he would look at. You know, well, this, and this, and this, I need to look at before I decide if I would take your case. If he thinks George would have a solid case, and he goes into all of that. So let's go ahead and let's get into it, you guys. And I don't really know how it's going to start, so I'm just going to put my little face right here for now, and I'll adjust if need be.
Now to talk about Casey Anthony. Because there could potentially be...
And I did edit this in a way, so hopefully it'll fall under fair use. You'll notice little editing clips here and there throughout it. I'm going to go ahead and start it over because my face was covering him.
Now to talk about Casey Anthony. Because there could potentially be a lawsuit against her. Hear me out. Now, Casey Anthony's attorney, Jose Baez, told the jury that his client, we know who she is, was molested by her father and her brother as a child. And now, 11 years after she was acquitted of murdering her daughter, Casey addressed the same accusations in the Peacock docuseries, Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies.
When I was 8 years old, my father started to come into my room at night. I was physically hurt. Scared because I was physically hurt and I can't tell mommy what happened. She'll get mad at me. That's what I was told. With my father, the abuse one day just stopped, just before my 12th birthday. My brother started coming in shortly after I turned 12. And it stopped around the time I turned 15. Wasn't the same thing that happened with my father. My brother never raped me. No, absolutely not. But it was close enough. Close enough where there was a pattern.
But you did tell your mom about it.
I did not.
Now, later on in the docuseries, Casey Anthony refers to a comment her father made at Kaylee's funeral and goes on to suggest that her father is a pedophile.
So it's now going to show that, you guys. This is where she's watching. And it's kind of weird because while the statements are kind of strange, she's like, he's admitting to the world that he's a pedophile. And I'm like, that's not what I heard. Maybe a little strange, but definitely not admitting that he's a pedophile. What this sounds like is she read a bunch of stories that people told about their ex-wife. Which was hers. It's oddly generic. All right, let's go ahead and listen.
Kaylee Marie Anthony, who not only meant the world to me, but meant the world to my family, and so many of you that never got a chance to actually hug her, smell her hair, smell the sweet sweat when she came in from outside.
I will say, okay, so up to that point, like, smell her hair, that's good with me because, like me and Kennedy, after we, like, take a shower and we wash our hair, Sean loves to, you know, we lay in bed, one on each arm, and he loves to smell our hair. Nothing, you know, Sean said, dude, I would definitely say something about missing the smell of y'all's hair or something. Now, the smell of their sweet sweat when they come in from playing outside, you know, I could, if one of my children had passed, I would potentially think something like that, like, oh my God, like, I'll never get to, you know, them coming inside and smelling like a wet dog. Oh my goodness, because I don't know. I mean, my kids, they're outside playing and they come inside and they kind of smell like a wet dog. There's not no sweet smell about their sweat. It's a stinky smell, you know, but maybe she's a cute, petite little girl and toddlers do have, babies have a good smell, and toddlers have a little good smell. And then as they start getting older, they start smelling a little on the stinky side. Maybe he didn't mean nothing by it. Maybe she was, still in that stage to where when she sweat, she had a little sweet smell about her. And, Sean, what's your thoughts on this?
I miss that kiss on the cheek, that special hug that I tell everyone it's so great to get a hug from someone, but to get a hug from a small child.
I fell asleep with my nose in y'all's hair, even when my kids stink. I love the smell of them. That is limited to my kids, though. I don't even like other people's kids. Sean, you are brutally honest, but thank you for your honesty. Yeah, maybe George is like, she died and I'm letting my feelings go. He lost everything, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, he definitely falls asleep with his nose over in my hair all the time.
That gives me energy like you couldn't imagine.
Okay, so he's saying, I did do that to her eyes. I did do the shooting darts. She's like shooting, the fire at her dad while watching. But yeah, he says, I say hugs are good, but getting a hug from a small child, that gives you energy like you couldn't imagine. That's kind of, the way that he said that, the way his voice shook a little bit, it almost sounded, it's a little strange,
You're outright telling the world that you're a pedophile.
That's definitely not what I got from that. I did not think that he told the world that he was a pedophile, but it was strange.
There's sort of this overall theme throughout, and really coming through the words of Casey Anthony herself, that what really happened to her daughter was Casey fell asleep, and then her father shows up with little Kaylee and says, don't worry, everything will be all right, and then disappears with her, and then she's found dead in the woods. And then her and her investigator talk about he must have smothered her. And he smothered her after he's trying to molest her as well, because as she's accusing him, he's a pedophile. So with that in mind, a lot of people are like, this is outrageous. You got to do something about it. Can't you do something about this, George? So if it's not true, I'm sorry with this premise, that those allegations...
I got to make this a little bit smaller because you can't really see the edits and I don't want to get in trouble. Hold on. All right, everyone, welcome Vinny to my panel. Hi, Vinny. Thank you for joining. Just kidding. All right, let's listen.
Allegations are not true. Could George Anthony sue his daughter, Casey Anthony, for defamation? So we were talking about this, and I'm like, well, there's only one way to find out. Joining me tonight, the lead attorney who represented Johnny Depp during his successful defamation case, Ben Chu, back with us. Ben, great to see you.
Great to see you, Vinny. Thank you for having me on again.
All right, so, and I'm serious about this potential, because a lot of people are talking about a potential suit here. If someone like George Anthony was going to bring a lawsuit like this, he'd have to go see an attorney like you. How does an attorney who represents people claiming defamation, how do you sort of vet the case? Like, what makes you take the case versus not take a case like this? What would a defamation attorney, what would the meeting be like with the client? What would you discuss? And what would be some of the factors that you would take into account here?
Well, Vinny, as you know, and you're assuming truth, but truth is always a defense in any defamation case. So due diligence on that point, i.e. whether the allegations are true, has to be done, and has to be done extensively, more so than in a general commercial case, because the attorney has to be as sure as he or she can be that the allegations are false before he would take the case or advise the client to proceed. And then you go on to other factors we can discuss.
Go ahead. What are some of the other factors you're going to take a look at there?
Well, the other factors you would discuss are whether these are allegations of fact or allegations of opinion, which are, as you know, allegations of opinion.
So basically he's saying Ben Chu is not her attorney, but basically he's saying you would look at if she's stating these things as facts or is she stating these things as her opinion. She's absolutely stating these things as fact. She is saying her dad did in fact do this. What do you need, babe?
I was gonna say something
On
about
here?
this. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just think it's crazy because my dad, like literally when we went over, I think it's, first off, there was no child stuff found on the computer, right?
No CP
On their
the
family computer. Okay, so right then and there, I doubt somebody who is a
CP.
yeah
Yeah.
is not gonna have that kind of stuff on their computer.
You would
right?
assume
You
you
would
would have
assume
something
that
like that,
when
yeah.
the police went through it, they would have found some kind of child, and I'm sure they even probably thought about that and considered him, but he was never a suspect. I just think it's really screwed up, and his words are being taken out of context. The thing about the sweat was a little weird, but who knows? Maybe that's his thing. Maybe they're in Florida, they're sweating. He's got his granddaughter over it. They're throwing the ball or playing outside, and he picks her up and smells her sweat.
All the time. That's something he remembers about her.
Yeah,
maybe.
that could be something he remembers. Literally, when I brought Kennedy to school earlier, my dad walked in to the classroom, to her little room.
Yeah.
And he leaned over and he hugged her and then kissed her on top of the head and sniffed her hair just like he always did to me as a kid. Like he would like get on her head, put his nose on her head, and sniff us like a dog, like just kind
Sean
of.
does it to
It's
me all
kind
the
of
time.
a joke. It's kind of like a joke because he does it like a dog, but at the same time, I'm sure just like I love the smell of my kid's hair and I love the smell of your hair. I put my nose in their hair all the time and I smell them, and it's just a thing. So I think his words are being taken out of context completely, and I think if there was any, if there was any kind of deviant behavior from him, they would have found evidence of it, and he would have been a suspect.
And
right?
he might not would have made those if he got off on smelling his grandchild's sweet sweat, then he might not would have said anything like that.
Yeah, probably not.
Like if that was something that was like sexual in his mind to him, like maybe he wouldn't have said it.
Yeah, I think
I
it
don't
was
know.
so innocent to him that when
But yeah, it
he
was
said
innocent
it,
to him, and that's why he said
Yeah,
it. He didn't think about it.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird to us. I definitely agree. But this is their only grandchild. Well, their first grandchild. I think this is before Lee had any kids. So they're down there in Florida. She lives with them. He's probably outside playing with her all the time. In and out of the pool. So maybe that is something that he just kind of recalls. No doubt, it's a weird thing to say. The sweat smells good to him because he loved her. When my 2-year-old passed away, I lost it because some family was trying to help and wash the blankets he passed on. And to me, that smell, even though it wasn't the best, it was the best smell in the world to me. Oh my goodness, that makes a lot of sense because, my nephew passing, like, I remember going to my sister's house after he passed, and we went in his room and we were kind of, going through some of his things. And like, I think I even snipped a few things. I asked if I could take some of his things, just as like something to remember him by. And even if it would have been, his spit up rag, I might not would have been off smelling it all the time, but I probably would have. If my sister would have been like, here, you can have this spit rag, I probably would have been like, all right, But yeah, so it may be a weird thing to say, but we're definitely, not. I'm not in his position losing a child, a grandchild, child at that age, and thinking of all the things that you would have to miss, and then standing there in front of thousands of people, having to give this speech. So if I thought that was happening to myself or my child, I would move it. Absolutely.
Are not actionable. In this case, I think you clear that hurdle because.
Okay, so he's saying opinions are not actionable. So first, you would have to distinguish the things that she is saying. Is she saying they are facts, or is she stating them as an opinion? She's clearly stating them as facts. And he's saying, if it's an opinion, they're not actionable. And he's going on to say, but you clearly already crossed that bridge because she's stating things as a fact. So that's what he's getting into saying.
Because the accusation of being a pederast, that's it's a pretty clear allegation. It's an allegation of a crime, and it's a crime so heinous in our society, or really any society, that it is considered defamation per se. So the damages to the plaintiff, again, under your hypothesis, assuming the falsity of the allegations, this is a particularly heightened form of defamation per se. But there's another factor I think you're going to get at, and I shouldn't anticipate your questions because I'm not that smart. But another factor always consider, and it was relevant in the Depp case as well, is you consider whether the potential defendant, as a practical matter, would have the means to satisfy any judgment.
Exactly. So something else that you look into is if you sue her, can she pay it? If you sue for $5 million, if you sue for $100,000, can she pay that? That's going to be something they're going to look for. Are the lawyers going to be able to recoup their money if they do it on contingency? People remember all kinds of different smells when they lose a child. Yeah. I do agree with that allegedly. He's also an ex-cop. If he heard a perp saying those things, doubt he would take it as innocent. Thinking it, one thing, saying it sounds awkward. Yeah. Sounds good, CC. I've lost 2 kids. I kept their hair and special items of my babies. Yeah.
Do you ever look at the person making the statement? So say, hypothetically, the person is a convicted liar, right? Someone who's an admitted liar. Someone who made an entire documentary talking about how she lied. Someone who's convicted in court of lying. Does that come into play as well in evaluating the strength of your case if you're accusing a convicted liar of defamation?
Absolutely, Vinny, and I should have said that you consider the credibility and the record of both the plaintiff and the defendant. And in this case, as you point out, though she was acquitted of the murder back in 2011, she was convicted of 4 counts of giving false information to law enforcement. And as a matter, although some statements were made by her counsel.
So that's a thing too. Like, would you take into the account that this person is a proven liar, has been convicted of lying? He says, yes, absolutely.
It's very clear that she changed her story about how Kaylee, came to be murdered. It's outrageous.
Changed it a bunch of times. So explain to folks how this would go down. And we all watched Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard. So if it's George Anthony versus Casey Anthony, we'll talk about Peacock in a moment. But if it's George Anthony versus Casey Anthony facing off, she'd have to testify. And if she's accusing him of being responsible for the death of her daughter, can you put her on the stand and question her about her role?
This is super interesting. This is getting really interesting, you guys. Think about this. Casey didn't take the stand in the trial, where she was being accused of killing her daughter. But if he sues her for defamation, he's asking, can you put her on the stand then? Listen to this.
Potentially in the death of her daughter?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You would put her on in deposition, of course, before you put her on a trial, and you would walk her through every false statement that she's made, every contradictory statement.
That could be wild. Could you guys imagine George Anthony suing her, and then they put her on the stand? And then they go over every lie? You said this. Like, what? One of the things they could ask her is, you accused your dad of being the one to find your daughter. And you accused him of taking your daughter off. And you said that, that door is so squeaky.
Sorry.
Thank you, baby. No, it's fine. You said that you checked in with your dad every day and he gave you instructions to be quiet. They could put her on the stand and ask her those questions.
Take the fifth.
Wait, but let me ask you about that. Can she take the fifth if she's been criminally acquitted of the murder?
That's, as always, you ask the best question. And if she faces if any further charge would constitute double jeopardy, then George's lawyer could say that she's not entitled to take the fifth, and that would be resolved by the judge. But I think George's lawyer would have a very strong argument that the fifth would not be available to her.
So that's what he's saying. Can y'all put her, because this isn't a trial for if you killed your daughter. This is a trial of you said things about me and you lied about me. You stated them as facts. Okay, you're coming up on stand. You said this about me. The accusations would be relative to the murder of her daughter and that whole situation. And can she plead the fifth? He said he thinks that he's basically saying that, from my understanding, that George Anthony's attorney would have a good argument for why she would not be able to plead the fifth because she would not be facing double jeopardy would be at play here. Like, it's not like she could be charged for it, you know?
Unless, I suppose she could make a creative argument about potential perjury convictions, new perjury convictions. But in any event, however she tries to get unwound from that particular axle, I think you would have all of that in the form of testimony. And I think she would just be in a very, very difficult place were she to be a defendant in a defamation case.
And my belief that case would be perhaps even more revealing than the criminal trial was.
Yes, it would, because their discovery in the civil context, as you know, is a very broad standard. Anything reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. And because these particular defamatory statements go right to the heart of what happened to Kaylee and what allegedly happened to Casey, all of this would be fair game. This would be a disaster for Casey Anthony. And, opening up this can of worms by doing this docu-series really would not have been something any attorney would have advised.
The fact that she's so close with Pat McKenna and her whole defense team, sans Jose Baez, she's super close to them. Pat McKenna sat with her during the docu-series and spoke with her. Thank you, Crystal. I love when Sean comes in here too and gives us his little input. But, the man that represented her thought that it would be a good idea. There had to be some thought in his mind. To me, it just goes to show that he absolutely believes Casey. Like, he believes her. Because did the thought not cross his mind, what if she is lying and she's making these claims against her dad? And then he could come back and he could sue her for defamation. And this is what we would be facing then.
Yeah, and the one question that has been answered there, I haven't heard it anywhere, is whether or not she got paid. I'm presuming there was some payment either for her interviews, her participation, or some pictures or whatever that she may have provided. But I don't know. She may not have been paid for the whole thing. All right, so let's get back to that other statement where you were talking about money, which is, if an attorney's going to take a case, there's got to be, some way to satisfy a potential judgment. I don't know if she has two nickels to rub together. She may have a few dollars here and there, but nothing substantial. But this was a docuseries that was produced by someone. It was placed onto a streaming service. If, and again, this is the big if these statements are not true, would they be potential defendants in the case as well? Would it be, who could be on the hook?
Yes, that's where you would probably go. And again, assuming that she is judgment-proof, which is an assumption, but not an unreasonable one, unless she was paid a lot for this docuseries, then I think you would have to look for a deep pocket. And the deep pocket could be the producers of the docuseries, who could be brought in as defendants. Publications, producers of these things are brought in all the time. Standards are somewhat different, but yes, I think if you were to proceed on behalf of George, I think you would have to advise George that you would want to be looking potentially at the producers of the docuseries as potential defendants.
Yeah, and this is a pipe dream of mine, but I don't think it'll happen, that if the case is brought that it's just George versus Casey, and he's doing it
just to clear his name. That would be, even if I didn't think I was going to get a red penny.
Not so much for the money, but to clear his name. And that would take an incredible sacrifice by attorneys to do that for free, pretty much, because I don't think, again, she doesn't have any money. But incredible insight on this Friday night.
Absolutely.
Got to talk about.
So that was pretty interesting, I thought. He's basically telling us that, there's whispers that George, has talked to an attorney about suing, but here's the thing. I was reading earlier that financially they are not in a good way, that they're facing foreclosure on their house. They're about to lose their house. So the only way they would really be able to sue is if they got if they had a lawyer that took this on contingency. But then you got to look at the fact that, do they think they could even make money off this? Let's try to GoFundMe for George. I don't think can you start GoFundMe's for legal fees? I know. I don't think you could do it through YouTube. She got a loan for $25K during her bankruptcy to retain the rights to her story, is what I heard. She's hoping to make. She got a loan during her bankruptcy? How's that even allowed? Yeah, I really don't understand why she want to show her face again. Like, people are, and that's the thing, is she had to go into hiding. She had to go into hiding because she was getting death threats. Her attorneys were getting death threats. People were threatening her attorney's kids. She had to go into hiding, right? And granted, yes, it's been 11 years. It's been 11 years. But that's one thing that people, you remind us about it and we're angry again. They would get one on contingency. See, that's what I'm wondering. But most lawyers won't take it on contingency unless they had a pretty good shot that they could win and that they could get their money back. They could recoup. So if Casey doesn't have anything, or they think, well, more than likely she doesn't have any money. So even if we win, we're not going to be able to get our money back. A lawyer might not want to pick it up. They're losing their house. Yes. So that's actually, I've read that. I've actually read a few different things this morning saying that George, I don't know why I always want to call him George Lopez. George Anthony, when he was in that car accident that really, messed him up, their medical bills were like over $200,000 worth of medical bills. They did start a GoFundMe to kind of help pay for the medical bills, but they only raised like $600, like not anything to put towards it. And yes, the bank is about to foreclose on their house. She took out a loan from someone to retain the rights. Otherwise, she would have lost the bankruptcy. Oh, okay. I think they were hiding out in a time capsule all the time. Someone who was working on the bankruptcy case. Hey, Elle Bee, even if she just gets perjury charges, at least maybe. Yeah. I mean, if they could somehow prove that she did in fact lie on the stand, which shouldn't. I mean, one thing that I thought about afterwards is Casey told us that she was calling home, every other day, talking to George, asking about Kaylee. But I'm just thinking, because one thing that we do know is that Cindy was reaching out to Casey. She was calling Casey. She was texting Casey, asking, where are you guys at? Where's Kaylee? I want to see Kaylee. When are you going to bring Kaylee home? What's going on? So I'm wondering if maybe this docuseries showed us a phone bill that was maybe more so Cindy reaching out to Casey versus Casey reaching out to George. Besides needing attention, why else would Casey Anthony be doing this after all these years? Money. I think she is getting paid for this. I don't know if she's getting paid a whole lot, but I do think she's getting paid off this. After you go bankrupt, you are more likely to get loans and credit cards because you can't go bankrupt again for several years. I guess he doesn't have health. No, it's been several years since he worked for the PD, from my understanding. I mean, back in 2008, when this happened, he had not worked for them for a couple of years, I think. Thank you, Destiny. So he has not worked for any sort of police department. And maybe at least 12, 13 years. They had to hire attorneys when the trial was going on. They had to testify and stuff. So then this car accident happened. Sean says she has the best hair. That's why I sniff it. So sniff that, Sean. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm not for sure if either one of them are working. I did read an article where Cindy said that she was approached back in, I think it was 2019, about a reality show. That she was really considering it just for the income almost, because financially they were in a tough spot. Like Casey wouldn't have said, ask dad, right? If you're facing the death penalty, right? If you're getting arrested, If they're arresting me because we can't find your kid, but yet I know that my dad has my kid, I'm like, oh, ask him. Sorry, Dad. Sorry. I hate to throw under the bus. I mean, if she really thought Kaylee was okay when they arrested her, she should have said, no, wait. Kaylee's fine. Kaylee's fine. My dad has her. He's been kind of holding on to her for me. You know, there was an accident that happened at the house, and he decided to kind of take her, and he's had her this whole time. No need to arrest me. We're good. My dad got her. Go ask him. I don't know if he retired, Sherry. I don't know if he actually worked there long enough to retire or if he just worked there for a couple of years. I'm really not sure. Oh, crap. What is this? Sean, are you listening? I bet Candy's not in here. There was just a shooting at a Walmart. At least 2 people were injured at a Walmart located in the Atlanta suburb of Marietta, Georgia. One of the victims sustained a gunshot wound and was rushed to a local hospital. The condition is unknown at the time. The shooter, whose name has not been released, was taken into custody at Cobb County. That just popped up. That just popped up on my computer. You're welcome, Sean. And if my mom called and asked me, where's Kaylee? I would say, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that they did have records for. They had records showing that he did in fact that she did in fact contact Casey, that she was calling Casey and texting Casey. When my daughter was murdered, I couldn't even talk or move. I was admitted to the hospital. I sure in the heck didn't go partying. Exactly. She would do well to complete. Yeah, she would do well to simply keep her mouth shut. So he did retire. Does anyone think that Casey would take the fall for her dad if she thought about it at the time? She would have she would have thrown him under the bus. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's something that while, I don't know if he would really, if he would be able to sue. I don't know if he would financially be able to sue. I've heard and read that he's consulted with an attorney over this, that right when the docuseries came out, he got in touch with an attorney, and that could have just been a consultation. Like, hey, this is what's being said. These accusations did not happen. I never did anything like that. I want to sue her, but I just don't have the money to sue her. And that could be, that could be something that someone would have to, a lawyer would have to figure out. But it could be a big thing. Like, that could be huge. If he sued her, she would have to go on the stand. That grin she had when looking at her injured dad shows how sinister she is. She doesn't give a dang about her family. Yeah, and then, they were asked in the interview, did Casey reach out to you, when you had the wreck? Did Casey reach out to you? And George said she did call to check on me. I think implying she called Cindy. And Casey says, no, I didn't. I would love for Cindy to speak up on that. Let me see if I can find out. Trying to look it up to see how long he was a police officer. Yeah, absolutely. Faith in humanity. That's terribly sad. Losing a loved one is difficult. Losing a child, holy crap. The body language expert did say that she was a better actor than Amber. That's not saying much. One thing that you notice with Amber and with Casey, they both do this, like the what did they say? It's like a sign of disgust, like they're like disgust. And so often Amber, when she was saying things that should have been something sad or she would do that, like it was disgust on her face, and that was because she was acting basically. It should have been, her what she was saying didn't align with what was being shown on her face. There could be a lawyer taking on pro bono just for the publicity, and that would be awesome. I always thought with defamation you had to show financial loss from like losing job. I think with defamation per se, you do not. I think that's what he was saying. My daughter died of eating a drink out of bed. I got down 90 pounds. My husband. Oh, where did that go? Me having been into the hospital for 15. Oh, wow. So I think if it's defamation, just defamation, you have to prove loss. Okay, so in the U.S., some states consider certain statements to be defamatory, defamation per se, and so that they are so awful, they are automatically presumed to have caused harm. So, and something like saying that, and that's what he said, that this would be considered defamation per se because the allegations that he was the one that hurt Kaylee, that he was the one that he sexually abused her, that would be something so heinous that it would constitute defamation per se. So he would not have to prove a loss of income because it would just be it would be obvious that it was cause some sort of harm, whether it be to his job, his reputation, anything. My daughter in her class. Car wreck? Car wreck? Was it a car wreck? I'm so sorry. How old was she? Could you imagine if Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez took that on? If he decides to, it would be awesome for Ben Chu and Camille because they're kind of, like they represented Johnny Depp and he was, lied on, defending men that have been falsely accused. I feel for Casey's parents having your kid who has put you through it end up turning on you. It's just a lot. They were far from perfect, obviously, but didn't deserve a daughter like Casey. Yeah. What? How old was she? Man, I'm so sorry. It's devastating, man. Jeez. Court is long and pricey, absolutely. With defamation, you have to prove loss, and they have to link her statements to his loss directly. I don't think it would be hard at all. She has done some damage. Man, yeah, Faith, I am so sorry to hear that. I am so sorry to hear that. It was back in 1992. Wow. And, that's been some time, but I can't even imagine that it doesn't hurt, Um, Jesus, 7 years old. Wow. I'm so sorry, man. If I was George and Cindy, didn't immediately denounce what Casey said and tell the world what a liar Casey was, then I'd be out of there quick. Yeah, the thing is Cindy still talks to Casey every once in a while. Cindy doesn't want to lose Casey 100%. I think she looks at it as, I've already lost Kaylee. I don't want to lose Casey. So she tiptoes around Casey. She doesn't like when George speaks his mind in these interviews. Just like that, that one interview where they said, do you think Casey is responsible for Kaylee's death? And he says, yeah, I think my daughter is responsible for my granddaughter's death. And they said, well, what do you think happened? And he said, I think my daughter gave my granddaughter something where she wouldn't wake up. And Cindy said, do you think she did it on purpose? And he says, well, no, I think it was an accident. And Cindy says, okay, there. Like, once again, like, see, he doesn't think she did it on purpose. Like, he's not saying our daughter is bad, that she would purposely kill anyone, but still, even if she would have come out after that, and I was going crazy, I gave her something because I thought she would just make her go to sleep. I didn't know that it would hurt her, and go to the police. Well, yeah, she's gonna get in trouble, but not as much trouble, as she could have gotten in if she would have been found guilty. I mean, she really, well, I mean, she was pretty daggum lucky. Your adult child kills your grandchild and then makes you look like a chomo. Poor man and his wife just went along. It's a very sad situation. Cindy is sacrificing the rest of the family for Casey. She just wanted to party. People fought him for going back and forth with Casey. I don't imagine your child did this. You need time to wrap your head around that. Yeah, I'm sure even in your own mind, you want to be in denial a little bit. That is probably their life story. George living in reality about Casey and Cindy living in delusion. Yeah. Holy crap, babe. Wow. I watch my kids every morning and get on the bus. You can ask my husband. Our kids stand by the front door. They don't go out. My kids do not go out of the house before the bus comes. They stand at the front door and I stand beside them. And when we see the bus come down the side road, that's when they start going out, and I watch them. By the time the bus gets to our driveway, they're at the end of the driveway, and I watch them get on. And as I'm standing in the front door, and the bus driver always waves at me every morning. I wave at the bus driver. This is me every morning. I wave to the bus driver, and then by the time the bus driver and me wave and she takes off, my boys have sat down, so I wave like this, and then I do this every morning. And if the boys are standing at the door and I'm like running to grab something or like had to use the bathroom, like if I'm doing something where I can't be at that door, and they're like, the bus is coming, I'm like, wait, and I'm like trying to get out there because I want to make sure I watch them get on the bus. I wave to the bus driver and my kids every morning, and it's like this, bus driver, and then to my kids. I'm 11-month-old grandson passed away last April. If my daughter would have taken his life, I don't think I would be able to maintain a relationship with her. Right, yeah. I would never leave any child at the bus stop. When it was my turn to watch them, the neighbor ended up moving to Alaska after I guess she felt guilty about what she did. Wow. And it was your child and another child. How old was the other child? Yeah, my kids don't mind it. My boys actually like it. My boys like sit down and look for me to wave, and then they wave back at me. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Mimi. It's devastating. I don't think people were as cautious back in '82. It did seem like the world seemed safer, but I think it's just we didn't know as much because social media wasn't at all what it is today. Mary was 7 and Gino was. Did they find your baby? Was she found? Were they both found? I was approached 4 times when I was a little girl by men trying to get in their cars. Good thinking, hell. Never go. Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always watching our kids. Your boys will remember that way forever. I think I'll remember it forever as well. It's something that we both enjoy. Even after lying about working for 2 years, she wasn't. I was stealing 40K from her parents and grandmother during that time. She's a disgrace. Hurts anybody who gets in her way. Some people, absolutely. That's why I fight so hard for children. That's what I would do too. if something like that happened to me. I would do whatever I could. We got them back 2 years later when he finally told the cops for my baby. Wow. We couldn't pull out a phone and know what happens to exactly, exactly. Um, my anxiety is so bad. I was like that in the beginning. So when my daughter first started school, I took her to school every day. Then when Kaden first started school, like Paris and Kaden, I took them to school every day. Then I had three going to school, and I think it was finally when the third one started, about midways into the year, I ended up letting them start riding the bus a little bit because I think I had became pregnant. I was supposed to be on bed rest, so I really didn't have much of a choice, but I really didn't like my kids being on the bus at first. Um, Thank you, Miss Amanda. Thank you so much. Man. The guy that did it, is he in jail? I mean, I would assume that he is. My niece won't let my great niece take the bus. She takes her to school every day. Yeah, I could understand that. Especially if we lived in a big city, I don't think I would let my kids ride the bus. I like taking my kids to school. I really do. Like sometimes I'll take them to school and Sean's like, "What are you doing? Let them ride the bus." I'm like, "I don't like taking them to school." Oh wow, wow. Maybe the best thing for him. Oh wow, Jerry, that's terrible. Yeah, it wasn't an accident. It was premeditated, cold-blooded murder by her own hands. She is happy she is free now and didn't have more kids. Thank God. Well, she claims that she would have more kids. Yeah, I will watch that defamation trial in a heartbeat. Hopefully, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it'll actually come. It's very scary. That's one thing. He stalked the school bus. That's one thing that I've worried about. What was the one girl who was stolen at the bus stop? She was at the bus stop, and the man and woman pulled up and was asking her like for directions. So she got close enough to the car, and the woman jumped out and like put something over her mouth that like kind of knocked her out. Threw her in the back seat of the car, and they took off. And they lived like hours away from there, so they went hours away to find this girl, to kidnap somebody. And then was it Elizabeth Smart? I think maybe.
About the people try to snatch Kenny from it.
Yeah, we did have somebody try to snatch Kennedy from us. When
Not
Kennedy,
from us.
well, not Sean wasn't with me.
I would have killed him.
Yeah, they when I was in Walmart, Kennedy was a baby. She had just gotten to the point to where she could set up in the Walmart, where you put your baby in the buggy and strap them in. Yes, JC. Yeah, that was her name. Okay, I always get her and Elizabeth Smart confused. But Kennedy had just gotten old enough to sit right there and be strapped in. So it was me, Kennedy. I had I think Paris, Caden, and Eli, maybe.
Yeah.
And we went to Walmart. I had gotten groceries, and Eli, it's better like that. It's better just like that. Don't move it. Eli was wanting to help me scan the groceries. So I had the buggy like kind of right here. It just where she was right behind me. Like the rest of the cart I could pretty much see because I was getting things out of. And she was just right behind me. And what's crazy is I had seen these people in Walmart probably 6 or 7 times. Pushing a buggy. Man and a woman. Nothing was ever in their buggy. And I noticed it. I noticed like I've seen them a lot and they still don't have anything in their buggy. That was all that I thought. Like it didn't seem, it's kind of awkward, not too awkward, So we continue to shop. I have several kids with me. When we get to the checkout, Eli's wanting to help me scan the items. So I have the buggy right here. We're grabbing things, me and him scanning them. At one point, he scans like one thing twice or something. And Kennedy is just like Sean. She does not like bringing in people, messing with her. So she was fine. She was being quiet. And then all of a sudden she starts crying. And I turn around and this woman has unbuckled her and pulled her out of the seat and is mid-turn with her. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You know, I'm like, what are you doing? And I grabbed Kennedy and I'm like pulling her back this way. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, you don't need to leave her in the buggy. She was crying. And I'm like, she wasn't crying until you got her. Like, and we're literally like in this, I'm like, give her back. Like, she's like, but you left her in the buggy and she was crying. You don't need to do that. And I'm like, she was not crying until you grabbed her. Yeah. And she wouldn't let go of her. And people's like, why didn't you hit her? And I just didn't want to take my hands off of her, like off of Kennedy at this point. I had both hands on her and I didn't want to let go to punch her, you know, and she could have took off or, you know, so just, you know, and we're arguing. And thankfully, the nurse from my kid's doctor's office saw what took place and walked over there and is like, was everything okay? And as soon as she walked over, the girl took off. And I was like, oh my God, that woman just got Kennedy out of the buggy and was trying to take off with her. She said, I saw that. She said, I thought you knew her at first though. She said, because I saw you when you was checking things out and I saw her unbuckling her and getting her. And I assumed that you knew her, but then I seen when you grabbed her and I seen the tug of war. And then I was like, oh my God, that cannot be what I think it is, you know? So that's why I decided to walk over here. And I was like, yeah, I had no idea who she was. Like nothing at all. No, not at all. And she said, do you want me to, sit here with you while you finish checking out? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And what's crazy is when this happened, when she took off, when the girl took off, I watched where she went. She went out this door over here. And the guy that I had been seeing her with was standing there waiting, no buggy, no groceries, nothing. He was just waiting. So she walks over there kind of fast, and they take off. So I start back checking out. I let the nurse hold my baby because I know the nurse. I went to school with her. She's a nurse in my kid's doctor's office. So I didn't want to put Kennedy back into the buggy. So she's like, I'll hold her. And I'm like, okay, here. So tell me why. I'm checking out. And the nurse goes, they're back. And I was like, what? She was like, they're back. Sure enough, I turn around. They went out this exit and come back in the other door on the other side. You guys know how Walmart has two entrances and exits, Sure enough, they went out this one, come right back in this one, and walked over to the bathrooms and was posted up against the wall by the bathrooms just looking at our way. So I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So I did talk to somebody at Walmart, one of the employees. They walked me out. They came back in the other doors, so I didn't see them. And I had some people at Walmart walk me out. I get in my car. I immediately call Sean. He's like, make sure nobody's following you, Yes, I called the cops. I called Walmart as well. I told some employees. I told some employees, and I told them that I would call back up there to give them my register number, like what time it was and everything, so maybe they could pull the video to get a description of them. I called the cops and everything, called Walmart and gave them all the information, but yeah, I don't think they ever found them. But I did report them, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a girl that was found dead in the woods right beside Walmart not too long ago. Well, it was 2 years ago. She had been missing for a couple of weeks. She was probably 17 or 18. And she's probably 17 or 18. And she had been missing for a couple of weeks. Pretty girl. And they found her car at Walmart parking lot. But she wasn't in it. And they had her on video pulling up, getting out, walking into Walmart, leaving the Walmart, getting back into the car, and then a few minutes later, crawling out the passenger side and walking off out of the view of any cameras. And sure enough, they found her dead in the woods right beside Walmart. Scary. And Walmart's not far from us at all. We've had a lot of attempted kidnappings at Walmart here lately. I think it's black market baby ring, big money. Yeah, it's pretty wild. You got to be super careful, especially females with babies, 16, 17-year-olds, always in your phone. Be, you know, aware of your surroundings. That was, I know, right? But yeah. So it was definitely scary. Definitely scary. But anyways, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and end this one out. We've been on for about an hour. I also want to cover what the judge has said, because the judge is talking about this as well. The judge has done an interview where he's talked about his feelings. He basically, what did he say? He said something about this is Casey being Casey again. Like, Casey, you cannot trust her no farther than you can throw her, basically. So we're going to come back here. Yeah, I do still, yeah, I shop there. I mean, it's the only Walmart that we have here. But I'm cautious. Me and Sean go to Walmart a lot now. Or Sean actually goes more than I go anymore. But you guys leave me your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you guys think about Ben Chew? Him basically giving us a rundown of what a defense attorney would look at when deciding if he was going to take on, George Anthony in a defamation case, and how interesting it is for him to say, like, this would be a more interesting trial than the murder trial, because Casey would have to take the stand. She really couldn't, plead the fifth. So you guys leave me your thoughts. The movie Taken, that's probably one of my favorite movies. But you guys leave me your thoughts. We're going to come back probably at about 6 o'clock, and we're going to talk about the judge and what he has to say. It's 5:09 Central Time, my time, so join me back here in a little bit less than an hour. I'm going to go in the house, chit-chat with the kids for a little bit. So you guys join me back here less than an hour. Leave me your thoughts. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye, everyone.